Hey everybody, got a little bit something different I'm going to work on today. This is Meccanoid. This is a robot that comes in a kit. This particular one is the Meccanoid G15KS. This has now since been replaced by the Meccanoid like 2.0 or something like that, which is very similar to this one. I actually don't know what the differences are. You can actually go online and there's a chart that explains the differences. The point is, this, although it is still an expensive toy, it was deeply discounted on Amazon because of the fact that the new one had come out. So my 12-year-old, who was very interested in this kind of stuff, I showed him and I said, hey, this is something you could get for Christmas. This could be your one big gift for Christmas type of deal. And he usually asks for Amazon gift cards and he puts his money together to buy like one really cool thing. This is what he decided to buy. And this is actually a really cool toy. This comes in all pieces. There's something like 1,300 individual little pieces. That's actually includes, I think they include counting every screw and nut. But it's got multiple servo motors in him. He's got like a brain box here. He's Bluetooth enabled, so with an app on a smart pad or an iPhone or a smartphone, you can actually have him do different things. You can teach him voice commands. There's all kinds of different things you can do with this. He has the ability to move. He's got motorized feet down here. So he's got motors in here that run these wheels, and he's got little swivel caster wheels on the back. This allows him to actually move forward, backward, and turn. He has multicolored LEDs behind these fake eyes, which allow him to give different expressions. Different colors lighting up here mean different readiness states, for instance, whether or not he's ready to accept the command or whatnot. He does some corny things too. He's got built-in jokes. He can tell you some jokes. You can tell him to dance and he'll do a little dance routine. A lot of really neat stuff. Each arm has a servo motor here at the shoulder, allowing him movement in this axis and this axis. A servo motor at the elbow, and then he's just got these kind of lame plastic hands that can be positioned as you like. Okay. Reason why he's down here in the workshop today is because ever since we completed putting him together, he's had a problem. Inevitably, when he goes to use one of his arms, I forget which one it is now, he stops and he informs us that there's something wrong with the arm. So we thought maybe it was a software glitch because we weren't sure what was going on. And recently, my son wanted to bring him to school to show him in a class that he's in where they're doing some robotics stuff. And we decided that, well, we should get the app to work so that he can actually use the tab. He's got a little tab that he can use, and you pull the app up and you can actually give him commands through the app, because he's not that great at understanding my son's voice with the voice recognition. So anyways, if you could, well, let's do the tab. Well, before we could do the application, the first thing it had us do was update his firmware. I was hoping that updating the firmware, which is a process of downloading software and then hooking up a USB cable to the back of this, and it downloads the new firmware. You could also wipe his memory so that if you have anything already stored in there, you can start over. We tried downloading the firmware, didn't solve the problem. We tried downloading the firmware and then wiping the memory, didn't solve the problem. And when we try and link him with Bluetooth, he links up with Bluetooth, but as soon as the app starts, the app informs us. It doesn't tell us exactly what's wrong. It just says that he is not assembled correctly. That's what they say. He's not assembled correctly according to the manual. I think that's what it says. Something like that. So something's wrong here, so I want to try and figure out what the heck is wrong. I guess the first thing we should do is demonstrate what he does or doesn't do.
Mecha brain activated. Running system diagnostic. Checking voice synthesis. Please continue. Is my arm up? Press yellow button for yes or blue button for no.
So I think he's done with his self-test now. And you'll notice that as he went and tested each thing on him, when he got to this arm, he raised the arm up and he asks, "Is my arm up?" And you press the yellow button to confirm to him that his arm is up, and he knows that it's working. When he got to that arm over there, he said incomplete, almost as if like he's not fully put together. The other thing I noticed is I did not notice the kind of movement out of this arm at all. This servo didn't seem to do... Okay, easy. Stop that. I'm going to shut him down because he's annoying. Alright, so anyways, something's going on with this arm, so we got to figure out what's going on with the arm. So the first thing I want to check is I want to check the wiring. Now, each servo motor has two cables coming out of it. A short cable with a plug on it and a long cable. And according to the manual, the servo motor here on the elbow, the short cable isn't used. And the long cable is actually supposed to come up and connect to the short cable on this servo motor, which it is. And then the long cable coming out of this servo motor is supposed to attach to the short cable on this servo motor, which it is. And then the long cable coming out of this servo motor is supposed to attach to number 3 on the module here, jack number 3, which it is. The fact that they're kind of daisy chaining these servos, each servo doesn't have a line, a home run line back to the mecha brain. That makes me think, since there's only 3 wires and they're daisy chaining this whole thing together, that what must be happening here is they must be using black as a ground, probably red as the voltage, and white is probably a data line. So they're probably sending data, and these must be coded so that the mecha brain knows exactly when it's talking to each servo, it knows which one it's talking to or communicating with. So that's kind of interesting. All appears to be hooked up correctly, which is unfortunate. So what I'm expecting here is I'm expecting that possibly there's a break in one of these wires somewhere. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to switch 1 and 3 around. Now this guy isn't smart enough to know which arm is which. So when I switch this around, if this arm here, now when I turn him on and he goes to the self-test, if this arm here works normally, then I know there's actually something wrong inside this box here. Is if I have a problem right off the bat, if he thinks this is his left arm now and he can't do anything with it, then I know I'm on the right track, that it's going to be a problem with the servo or the wiring.
Mecha brain activated. Running system diagnostic. Checking voice synthesis. Please continue. Left arm incomplete.
The reason why when I switch 1 and 3, the reason why this arm goes up is because when he first powers on, he sets all the servos back to a certain ready state, I guess, or a certain start position. And because he's thinking that this arm is the other arm, because I switched the connections, by putting that arm up, he's actually thinking he's putting this arm down by his side and getting it ready to do that movement where he puts it up and says, "Is my arm up?" So that was actually normal, which means that this servo is operating correctly and doing what it's supposed to do. The fact that when I switch the two, he then immediately says there's a problem with the arm, that tells me that it's not a problem here. It's a problem with the arm itself. So, since this servo is the only one that's operating, I must have a problem with the wiring between the output of this servo and the input of at least this servo, if not further. Now I'm wondering whether or not there could be something wrong with this servo. So I'm going to just disconnect this servo altogether. And I'm going to see whether or not, before he decides this arm is faulty, I'm going to see whether or not he even tries at all to move this servo.
Is my arm up? Press yellow. Oh, this will come
Alright, so it's definitely that this servo and this servo both are dead. They're either not receiving any data commands or there's something wrong. Now it could be maybe the voltage that's supposed to be going to them is not getting there. It could be a break in this wire, I guess. Alright, so I got frustrated, so I ripped his arm off. No, just kidding. I took out 2 screws so I could pop this entire arm assembly out. And the reason I did that is because what I want to do now is I want to be able to see whether or not if I plug this plug into here on this side, whether or not this servo and this servo do anything. I'm trying to determine whether or not there's a problem in this assembly I'm holding in my hands somewhere along from this point on, or is it a problem where even though this servo is working, that where this plug comes out of the servo, something's wrong. It's not sending anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unplug this. Since the left arm is the one he tests first every time, it shouldn't matter that I have that whole arm disconnected. As a matter of fact, if I rotate this like this, mess with this, if this resets to like the start position, then I know that there's a signal coming out of here and this is all working, and then I know there's something wrong in this part.
Brain activated. Running system diagnostic. Checking voice synthesis.
Nothing.
Please continue. Left arm incomplete.
Something's wrong.
Incomplete.
Okay.
Where am I? Oh.
Obviously right arm's incomplete because I have it disconnected completely. Left arm's incomplete and this does nothing. So my problem is in here, somewhere in here. So now I've localized the problem to this and not this. What I'm going to do is I've disconnected this servo. I'm going to take the cable for this servo, which I know is good, and I'm going to hook it into here. And I'm going to take the cable for this servo and hook into here. And repeat.
Brain activated. Running system diagnostic. Checking voice synthesis. Please continue. Left arm incomplete.
This is the problem right here. It's either the wiring attached to this servo or the servo itself. I've just discovered another clue. I noticed that some of these lights were blue and some were green. And I think the blue and green LEDs are actually status indicators on the individual servos. So what I've got now is the way I've got it hooked up now. When I turn this on, you'll notice at first they all come on green, but then they'll turn blue. So this is the good arm.
Brain activated. Running system diagnostic. Checking voice synthesis.
So
Please continue.
they all come on blue. I mean, green at the very first power up. Then they all go blue. On this arm, this one turns blue, this one turns blue, this one is staying green. The fact that this is staying green either means that this servo is not receiving any data or there's something wrong with the servo itself. I haven't figured that out yet. Alright guys, once you get the servo out of its protective shell here and casing, it actually it begins to look just like a larger style of the kind of servos that you find in RCs. Probably uses the same basic type of setup as far as how it works. You can actually see that silver disc right there. That's actually the back of the motor. So the motor is soldered directly to the PC board here. So the motor would be sticking up inside here, and then there's a almost like a little miniature gear reduction system in here. Anyways, there isn't much you can do to service these, but what I do want to do is I want to see whether or not there's a break in this wire, because there are a couple of under magnification, I can actually see there's a couple of pinch points here. This wire may have become damaged. This wire may not have been routed correctly originally, or any number of things may have happened. I don't remember whether or not this thing has had this problem right from day one. It could have been that one of these wires wasn't routed exactly correctly, and when the arm movement happened, it could have done some damage to it. I don't know. But it's easy enough to check that. There's this clear plastic back. I've got to take this off, and I can get to the little connections right where the ends of the wires are soldered on the board. And I can do a simple continuity check between those points and these little holes on the connector right here will let me get to the actual contact. Yeah, these screws go all the way through the case, just like on other servos I've worked on. So if I'm not careful, this will break apart right here into two pieces, and I don't really want to do that because I don't want to mess with the insides of this thing. If it was binding or something like that, or if it was making noise but not rotating correctly, I could suspect maybe a problem with the actual gears or something, and then we could look at whether or not that's something we could service. That is, did they put a security head on that thing? Wow, those heads, screw heads, are torn up. They must use a power driver to install these at the factory quickly. This X-Lite seems to have done the trick. That's what it looks like with the cover off. Alright, let me grab a continuity checker. Well, I used a DVM on resistance and checked for continuity from this point on this end of the white wire to this point here on the board. I did that with all three wires, and there's no problem. Continuity is good on all three of those connections. And the fact that it's lighting up would indicate to me that it's probably getting the voltage. The fact that it's not operating correctly would indicate to me that either the white wire was bad, so there was a data reception problem, which turns out is not the case apparently, because the white wire is good, or there's actually something wrong on with the servo itself, since it's not working anyways. Just for the heck of it, I think I'll open it up and see if I can see anything. So you can see there's the whole gear mechanism is in this thing. And then the way this works, for those of you who aren't familiar with servos, the servo is, it's an electric motor driven by a PC board, and the PC board has a circuit on it that receives feedback from this shaft right here. So up underneath here there's probably some sort of device. I'm not sure if it's a potentiometer or what it is. There's a device up underneath here that is sending information back to this circuit and telling the circuit exactly what position that arm is in as it rotates. So it knows when it's reached the end of its travel, and it also allows it to be able to move to a position and then move back to a position it was at previously, and all of that. So that's a pretty, it's actually a sort of a feedback loop that's going on in there. So it's a pretty neat little device. But there's something, I believe there's something wrong with this one, and I don't know what. And I don't think I'm ever going to find out. So the next step would be to, of course, find a replacement. And there is, conveniently enough, a part number right on the side of this thing. I believe that's going to be a good part number. 1505-18WZ. Alright, so if you hung with me to this far in the video, and you need to buy a replacement servo for your Meccanoid, I'm going to give you a tip, and it's going to make it worthwhile for sitting through this whole video. For starters, this part number on the side here is absolutely useless. If you Google it, nothing comes up. In the Meccanoid owner's manual, they only reference this as, I believe, an M902. So it says that, you know, it's X amount of M902s come with the kit. So that leaves you to go online and search for either Meccano or Meccanoid Servo. And you might find some people on eBay, amongst other places, actually selling either what appears to be, maybe it's an older servo, but you see that's got that, either that or there's something wrong with this guy's camera color. That looks yellow to me. That might work, probably does. It's $15. There's a blue one, $15 plus $3 shipping, getting more expensive. So let me just cut to the chase here. So what you don't want to buy a replacement servo. What you want to do is look for expansion packs, because the expansion pack is cheaper. So what you want to do is you want to find the Meccano expansion pack. This says manufacturer's reference, so this might be the Meccano part number, the 6027006. I found it here on Amazon. Luckily for me, age is 36 years and up. Luckily for me, I'm over 36 years old. I thought that was kind of funny. Obviously, that's a typo. So what they're calling this is an expansion pack, and what it is it's a servo, and it comes with an extra bracket and the housing and everything. And what that's for is that's to actually add onto your elbow so that you can actually add another axis of movement to the forearm. Now, people who have actually done this upgrade have said that it only works in drone mode. So I don't know if it works or not, but most of the people, if you read the reviews, turns out a lot of people have figured out what I figured out, which is if you've got a bad servo, it's cheaper to buy this. Look at this, $7.45, and if I, over $25, I get free shipping. I'll just add something else to the order that I was thinking about getting, hopefully, and there you go, $7.45. This comes in. We tear the servo out of that. Actually, we don't even need to. You could probably use that assembly. The point is, don't pay $15 on eBay to some guy for a servo that isn't even the right color. It might not be correct at all. Buy this and scrounge the servo out of it. And through the magic of editing, we instantaneously receive shipment of the Meccanoid, what are they calling this? Expansion pack. Pack Dextension. Okay, so supposedly it says works with Meccanoid G15 and G15KS, which we've got the G15KS, and what they're showing here is that this is supposed to be a smart servo for more build possibilities, and the idea is that you're supposed to be able to give him another way to articulate his arm. Supposed to be able to give him not just this, which he already has, but this capability, I think. But anyways, the point is, the reason why you buy this is not to expand him, but because this can be bought for like $8 on Amazon. And what it comes with is these plastic parts, which we don't need, and some screws. And so essentially, you pay the $8 for this and only use this, a DEV06 servo. Voila. That can't be right. All right, so I've got the arm back together. I just basically broke out the manual and followed the instructions for the arm again. So I'm going to install the arm back on Meccano. All right, now for the moment of truth.
Mega brain activated. Running system diagnostic. Checking voice synthesis. Please continue. Is my arm up? Press yellow button for yes or oh, this will come in handy. Left arm connected. Is my arm up? Press yellow button for yes. Hey, give me a hand, would you? Sorry, bad joke. Right arm connected.
Okay, so I had thought I had Meccano all repaired, and I was getting ready to wrap up this video, and this was actually last week now. And ended up realizing that he was not using his elbow servo on that same arm. So even though all the servo lights are blue like they should be, that servo is dead. So it apparently not only did he have a problem with the shoulder servo in that arm, but also the elbow servo. Nearest thing I could figure. I did some more diagnostics, and nearest I could figure is that he had 2 bad servos. So I ordered another one, and since it's now a week later, you guys, through the magic of the video editing, it will be seamless. But I now have ordered a second one of these kits. I think this might have been the last one this seller had. You know, I noticed on this one, I didn't notice on the last one, but I noticed on this one it says only at Toys R Us exclusive. So now I know why these are so cheap. They were only like $8 on Amazon, because the person who had these on Amazon probably bought these at like, 10 cents on the dollar at a Toys R Us closeout type of auction or something. And again, the good news is that by buying this, we get a brand new DEV-06 servo. Oh, so I guess I should demonstrate exactly what is wrong with him right now.
At your service. Say my name. Meccanoid.
Meccanoid.
At your service.
Oh, he's in command mode. Tell a joke.
You got it. Why did the capacitor kiss the diode?
I don't know.
Just couldn't resist her. Thanks. Great audience.
So you can see this.
Exiting to main menu.
This arm's doing nothing. Meccanoid. Tell a joke.
Sensors detect 87% probability that you will laugh at this one. What did the socially awkward robot say at the party? I am not antisocial. I'm just not user-friendly. Exiting to main menu.
So this servo right here is doing absolutely nothing. So that's the problem. So I'm just going to do a real quick test. I plugged the servo in. I just haven't bolted it in. But I should be able to see this articulate if things are working normally.
At your service. Say my name. Meccanoid.
Meccanoid. So I can see it moving. So all I've got to do now is physically replace this servo, and he should be repaired. Too bad servos in one arm. That's very strange. All right, I got the new servo installed. Let's take a look. So what I'm going to do for starters, I'm going to place his arms in an unnatural position and just see if he resets.
At your service. Say my name. Meccanoid. Would you like to program an LIF move? Say yes or no.
No.
Maybe next time.
Meccanoid.
That is my name.
Kung Fu.
Is this thing on? Wait, of course I am. Did you hear the one about the vacuum cleaner? I am not surprised. It sucks. They can't all be winners. Exiting to main menu.
All right, so he appears to be working. I've got one last test I can do to actually show that he's fully operational, and that's I can get the app and we can actually tie into him Bluetooth mode.
System shutting down.
I don't know why he's shutting down. Once the battery's low. Maybe the battery's dead.
It's me, Meccanoid.
Yep.
Turn on your Meccanoid and make sure it is set to robot mode. Hang on a second while I search for a nearby Meccanoid.
My pleasure. Greetings. I am Meccanoid G15KS. Bluetooth detected. Do you want to connect? Press yellow button. Bluetooth connected.
Alright, so with the app, I can go in. Yeah. Right.
I'm awake. I'm awake.
Great. You are now connected to your robot.
Okay. So now that I'm in connection with the robot, I can go into this mode here, and this, you can see as soon as this opens up, he goes right into this position because that's how he's shown here, and I can manually move his arms. You can actually play back that series of movements. Really cool toy. Well, it looks like he's all fixed now. My son will be thrilled that that's finally fixed.